Welcome, everyone. It is I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is so exciting to be here, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate that we're having our first school committee of the new school year in the new building. You know, I'm just awestruck by the tour we went on. So much congratulations to everyone for this extraordinary. I'd like to introduce Steve Ledoux, this is our new representative from Concord. So we are so thrilled to have you with us, and this is your first meeting as a school committee representative, and so welcome.
Thanks, happy to be here.
I also want to take a moment to congratulate the superintendent on being a finalist for the National Superintendent of the Year.
Thank you.
And for co-authorship of a recently published book.
Yes.
So congratulations.
It's exciting times. Thank you.
I'll open it up to public comments. And do we have anyone who would like to comment?
I do. I just want to say happy birthday.
Actually, before we go any further, Julia did ask me to ask everyone to talk loudly. You know, we don't have the microphones that we had before, so we're testing out this room. So I know I have a cold, if you guys want to move a little further away, I understand. But, you know, do your best to really speak up. So moving on to chair's report, does anyone have anything you would like to mention for the good of the organization? Other than, of course,
The fact we're in.
the fact that we're here just, I think, overwhelms it. Overwhelms it.
So I have a returning junior, and the social network from her peers has been overwhelmingly positive and exciting. Again, the first couple of days it was, hey Dad, tell me about, you know, what's happening behind this room and this room, and I'm like, I don't know, I haven't been in there. So very excited about the new technology, the space. There was a couple of students who got lost, and you know, that's to be fun. But again, they're enjoying the fact that they're exploring the new space. So again, the kids are reporting back that they love the school. It's renewed pride. I'm hearing a lot of things that I used to hear long ago, now renewed with this group of kids. So I think it's a good opportunity to capitalize on that, bring back some school spirit, and advertise that to the community. It's a great opportunity, and again, the kids are fired up. So they're probably our largest mouthpiece. So well done.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Okay, moving on to school committee goals and actions. So as you know, at this time of year, and if you're looking for them in your packet, you're not going to find them. So this time of year is the time that the school committee takes a moment to get together to set our school committee goals for the coming year. Last year, Dave had asked all the committees to work together to work within the committee, for each committee to submit a goal. So for our own, you know, to be basically, you know, forming our own school committee goals. And I felt that process worked really well, and I'd like to ask each committee to do that again this year. And so it would mean each committee to be thinking about, you know, a goal for the coming year. If I know this timing is tight, but if it would be possible to have draft goals by September 30th, we have I know that's only a week and a half, we have the next officers meeting is October 2nd, and we'll be able to review them, put something together, and get it back out to all of you before the next meeting so that we can officially adopt goals at the next meeting. So if you could, as your committees, send your goals to Julia by the 30th. We'll then put them together and review them at our next meeting. So speaking of committees, next on the agenda is school committee assignments. And I wasn't able to reach everyone until right before this meeting. So we don't have written, a written document with school committee assignments, but I will get that to Julia and we can email that out probably within the next week, if that works for you to get that out to folks. Okay, can we move on to school building report?
Yeah. Can someone get the video up while I talk a little bit? George, do you?
Try.
Anyway, let me talk a little bit while George is doing that. We had a school building committee meeting last night, our first one here in the new building. Took a little tour. We approved about $6 million worth of invoices. We've committed about 98%, I believe, of the total GMP, that's guaranteed maximum price on the construction project.
Sorry. I can't even stop
Isn't
it.
it supposed to hook up?
Yeah, I know that.
Just pause, it'll be okay.
Seeing your reactions, it's deeply satisfying.
I don't want to confuse you by talking in two different places.
Yeah. There we go. At least we got that done. Okay.
So does the clear touch have to be turned on?
I think it is on.
Bless you.
The red light's on.
That looks
Does
like
that
it's
show that it's on?
each EMI port like
Underground.
How many HDMIs are there?
One.
Well, not to mention, whatever the power stuff that went on behind us, like the washing machine.
Not my first rodeo.
That probably shuts off.
beautiful view.
We're still getting trained and everything.
There you go.
Oh, look, he left this for me to turn it on.
Maybe the shot is maybe.
Yeah,
Go
that-
on up there and
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, that's a mirrored display, so whatever you're doing on your laptop, it'll do there.
Okay.
It's taken 12 years to get this building together, and seeing the kids here, feeling their energy, seeing their reactions, it's deeply satisfying.
Awesome! Oh my god, it's huge!
I feel like I'm like a kid in a candy store. I have no limits. I can do whatever I want, and I'm just really excited to start school. Like, that's surprising to me. I'm like very excited for it.
It doesn't seem real. When I was a student, they talked about it and everybody was like, yeah, we'll never see it, one of those. And then to actually be here and on the other side of the fence as a teacher a few years later is just unreal. You can't believe that we're in it.
Everything here is like new and clean, and like you can really depend on it for like what you need done.
I think it's nice that we finally have something that's state of the art, especially with all the new technology that's in this school. I think it's really an upgrade, especially for a vocational school like ours.
When I walked into the preschool, it was huge. I was in awe. There was such a big space to learn. They could spread out the room and you could change it depending what you need to do. It's a very inviting environment.
The layout of the shop is a lot easier. We have a garage door. We never had one of those, and it's just easier to get materials in and out.
It's a more focused place to work now, and it's all like closer together so we don't have to be all over the place.
It's very modern looking.
There's more windows, there's more skylights looking up to the sky.
All the shops and how they like separate them with the life sciences and services and then the trades hall. It's like perfect.
Okay, so this is the central staircase. You'll be using these stairs a lot, heading up and down between all your classes.
I really like how the lunchroom has downstairs, upstairs, and the courtyard, so everyone can like spread out.
Everything is new, and I feel like everyone is so excited to be here. I'm really excited to be here.
First day of the year, brand new school. Super excited to see what we can do here in this new Minuteman.
As a veteran, experienced teacher, it's like I'm starting a new career.
We have a lot more work to do to kind of finish things off, tweak some things that aren't working, get it to work right. But we're a year ahead of schedule, so we've saved a lot of money. And this is the cost of being here a little earlier. Some things aren't quite polished, but we're happy to be here. And I'm looking forward to the year.
This is awesome. I just can't wait.
So that was, that hasn't been finalized yet. There's still some stuff to do in it. Andrew Mudge, who's been coming here for 4 or 5 years taking video. We're going to be embarking on the development of a documentary of what it took for this to happen and how it happened, which is really the involvement of the kids and the teachers in a lot of the design work. So Andrew's coming this Friday to interview a few more kids to put in there, and we'll put it on the website soon. But it's a great piece for town meeting. It's just.
Have you guys thought about taking some of the alumni that were involved in the original design work that are alumni now, and having them come back for like an alumni night and then film their responses?
We're going to reach out to the alumni specifically. I don't know where the list is of those people who were sitting in with the architects. I know some of them.
Yeah.
When they graduated, I became Facebook friends with them.
I can help with that though. Tristan was on that team, and she's friends with a lot of her alumni.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to get their perspective from design on paper and concepts to physical.
Yeah.
So Ed, you mentioned that there was an issue with them getting the IT infrastructure of the building working. So what happened and what's the status of that?
I can't speak to it technically, but they're still trying to integrate some of the systems, some of the security systems. We bought some systems late in the project so that we could get the most up-to-date version. And I think some of them are a little bit too up-to-date for the integrators, because we have a company called Integration Partners.
That integrates things.
Theoretically, yes.
Good guess.
But the last we heard, it was going to be probably a week before our internal monitors are working. You know, all the monitors you see in the hallways, and another week, I think, is what they were saying. We have a meeting tomorrow morning. We'll get an update. Our weekly meetings. Other than that, I'm trying to think if there are any big major showstoppers. Not really.
You were starting to talk about 98% of the GMP when the video started. Did you have anything more than that?
No, just we've committed 98% of the money. Something like 89% of the construction is completed. The biggest portion of that remains over there, which that building starts to come down in late November. In a few weeks, they're going to start pulling it apart. And then once it's all down, they remediate it, pull all the soil, everything out, and put all new fill, which is, if you drove in that way, the piles of dirt behind the tennis courts where there used to be tennis courts.
And can you remind me how the GMP stacks up relative to the 144?
The GMP was about 119 million. Our biggest challenge over there now is getting permitting completed through the town of Lincoln.
Over there? Isn't that?
They have a say in it, yeah.
Isn't that in Lexington?
They have a say in it because the watersheds are shared, and we're going to our 6th meeting on the 23rd of September.
Do you anticipate any major issues?
I always anticipate major issues with Lincoln, so I'm pleasantly surprised when there are none. We've answered all their questions. The neighbors have showed up en masse again, not realizing that what was previously permitted included lights on all the fields. And they've been making new complaints about the project, so the planning board's been giving them the opportunity to ask questions and giving us the opportunity to answer them. Some of them we can answer right up there, some we need more data. We agreed that to have Lincoln hire an independent consultant to evaluate the acoustical impacts of the speaker systems that were previously permitted. They're in the process of hiring that consultant. So if they don't hire someone by the 20th or so, and they have a chance to read our reports submitted by our engineers and our independent peer reviewer, then we'll be delayed another 2 weeks. If we do get, for some reason, and we don't see any logical reason why they would deny us the permit, we can appeal to the State Zoning Board of Appeals, which I'm sort of preparing to do that at the same time we're working with them.
So you're working with, it's the planning board in Lincoln, not the ZBA in Lincoln, but you appeal
No,
to
they don't.
the state
It's all
ZBA?
combined.
Is it?
It really is, from what I can tell.
Don't they have deadlines that they're supposed to have issued things by? But if they don't, it's tacitly approved? 120 days from the time that a
You would
hearing
think
starts?
that most towns, they have those things.
Oh, that was a
Conservation
state
approved it
statute.
months ago. Conservation Commission in both towns approved it. Planning Board in Lexington approved it about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Because you remember, we're doing the permit we're trying to get now is on the enhanced facility.
I've just been asked that.
So it's being treated as a whole new application. So they can go back at you for other things that you thought were
They've already
resolved.
approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions, Brad?
We're on time, we're on budget, and a year early, as you can tell. I couldn't imagine another year. But staffing update, just to, Bob, you met at the last meeting. Bob Girardi, Director of Finance, is on board. Kevin Mahoney is working a couple days a week, helping us with the project and some other things related to the enhanced fields, and I think he's been a great help to me and to Bob as we transition. We have a new IT director who started yesterday, has hit the ground running. He actually came in the evenings and over the weekends before he was even employed to work with Kevin, our IT technician, and our former IT director, Justin, came in as well. So we could be ready for the freshman and laptop distribution and some other issues with our servers that we moved over here. So he's been a great, just a great addition. It comes from the city of Boston. Very highly recommended.
What's his name?
Victor Woodland.
Woodruff? Woodruff?
Yes.
It just occurred to me, we have bottles now for our water because we're no longer using plastic, is that correct?
Yes.
Nice.
It's good, I like these better.
These are composted.
Very nice.
See, it says composted ones.
Sorry, that was not on the agenda, but
Right.
just thought just occurred to me.
Right. Well, I don't know, is there further staffing updates?
There are, but I can't remember right now. Help me.
There was one that
I had a list
somebody was,
downstairs.
yeah. What did I read? That somebody, you'd offered the job to somebody, but.
Oh, the director of communications
Yes,
job.
okay.
We had offered it to one person. It took him 2 weeks to kind of get back to us, and he denied, got a higher wage at where he was working. And by that time, our number 2 choice had gotten another position. So we interviewed again, and we've offered the position to a person very highly qualified, very highly recommended. He has not accepted the job yet. He and I have been in discussions. But I hope those discussions are completed by the end of the week, and that he'd be on board in a couple of weeks after that. What other staffing?
The facilities manager?
Oh, Bob, Rich
Yeah.
Ikonen started a few weeks ago. I think you met him. He was at the previous.
Yeah.
He's been hitting the ground running and running and running. He's the one who did 17,000 steps in a day. As you may recall, he's from Monty Tech, and he was also a business manager in Winchendon. Was acting superintendent in Winchendon for a while as well. He's been a great addition. We have a couple open positions still. We're trying to, I guess we're trying to fill a permanent daily substitute position. We have our librarian position we're going to be posting probably in the middle of next month. She retired at the end of last year. I think that's it. I'm sorry, my list is downstairs.
Well, I was gonna say we have George here in a new role.
George has hit the ground running.
And Amy, right.
Yeah, but you all know them. Okay. School-wide goals. Those are in your packet. I don't know if anyone had any other comment about that. I think the superintendent goals is what I wanted to spend a little bit of time. There's version 2.2, which added a transition goal, which is really the only change to that. The superintendent educator evaluation plan, this is draft number 2, where the goals, including the transition goal, are now reflected in this plan, as well as some timelines and strategies and action steps. Just to go through a few, goal number 1 regarding the Minuteman Academy model, strategies and action steps is to conduct a professional development needs assessment for the Academy development team, see where they feel they want to spend some time in regards to professional development. We also have a group called the Digital Learning Curators. They've been very helpful in terms of, I think there's 10 or 11 of them. We have 2 leads, and they've been very helpful in training staff in a variety of technologies. And we want to expand their use. They've also asked me for support so that they can develop presentations to be given to the staff as well as to other organizations. I think they have a couple of proposals out to the big IT conference that happens in the fall where they'd be presenting at. They presented at the Connecting for Success conference, that is a statewide conference in June. I believe we had about 12 staff presenting at that. Minuteman was very well represented in terms of sharing our knowledge and expertise around the state. And I was surprised, I didn't know how many people were doing it until I asked the people who ran the conference, so how many Minuteman people are presenting? and they were scattered all throughout the program. And, so I want to kind of recognize that more formally and support it going forward. We're in the process of finalizing professional development days, and that calendar will be out. Supporting all students. Amy reported to you earlier about a grant we received that we're utilizing to revitalize our SST, our student support team process with that grant. How many folks worked over the summer? Developed 9 staff worked over the summer. We're also going to implement a computerized system called EDIS that helps us track students who may be having difficulties in 1 or 2 areas, and we flag them so we can get out in front of them, and everyone can work through their student support team, which is organized by Pathways to help deal with kids as a collaborative group of adults, all talking about the same kid, all working a plan to help that kid in whatever way they are needing it at the moment. Sustaining enrollment. I'm talking about our high school enrollment as well as our MTI enrollment. We've got 41 post-secondary students enrolled in 6 programs right now. As we were taking the tour, you saw the cosmetology post-secondary students. We also have post-secondary students in advanced manufacturing, culinary arts, electrical, metal fabrication. That 5?
That's 5.
And automotive, 6. 40 students, and the director, Dr. Houle, I think she said a third of the students had already paid their full tuition, which is a much higher tuition than we would get from postgrads. It's about $7,000 to $8,000 a person. Just to remind you, we're going through an accreditation. When I say we, Minuteman Technical Institute, going through an accreditation with the Council for Occupational Education. Once we get that approval, our students will be able to access Pell Grants, federal student loans to pay the tuition. And we expect once we're able to get that, enrollment will increase even further.
Is that open to just in-district students?
In-district and out-of-district.
And is the opening every fall, or do you have a spring start to some programs?
Most of them are fall enrollment and they go the whole year, although there are a couple that we've been asked to try to accommodate a rolling admissions but we haven't committed to that yet. A lot of the students are recommended through career centers where they may go for help if they're unemployed or seeking to enhance their skills, and so they're supported by the Career Center through Department of Labor funds. They're called WET funds, Workforce Training Funds. One of the things I've talked to the hopefully new communications director about doing in the first few months he's on board is working with all of us to develop a strategic plan around communications. He has a lot of experience in developing them for educational institutions, including post-secondary institutions. He's also done a lot of work with foundations in terms of raising funds and development work. We're also going to be posting for a new admissions director later in October so that George can direct those efforts and be focused on being principal. And we're also going to be assessing how do we strengthen the support for admissions generally. I think that'll be accomplished through the strategic plan, but also is the way we're organized the best way going forward. And we can talk a little bit more on enrollment when we get to that. Legislative engagement, we're going to have a legislative breakfast. I've asked to serve on the legislative committee at MAVA. When we were looking at the minutes from the last meeting, there was a discussion about proposing a declaration to the school committee that simplifies the district's priorities. And as I read the minutes, that came out of your and I discussion about what should be my priorities.
Yeah, and
or something.
And to where we were going with with the different, with the access and the,
Right,
and,
right.
and the non-resident condition
Right.
stuff.
So I want to talk to you a little more about that.
And I noticed that Bessie posted their agenda for the September meeting, and they are not going to put they are not going to open the Chapter 74 regs at the September meeting, which they had thought they might have. So I figured that we've got another month at least.
I think we may have a couple more months from what I've heard this afternoon.
Okay.
But there's a MAVA meeting coming up, and we'll hear about that. New members, we wanted to keep that simple and straightforward. Campus development, we'll talk a little bit about that this evening. I didn't want to put a lot of detail in here because during executive session, we're going to talk about the proposals that we've received regarding development operations and financing for the campus development work. We'd also talked about the competency modeling for leadership. It was in the context of a discussion around succession planning. And then we also talked about a feedback instrument. So I wanted to capture those in the action plans of that goal. Transition is, I'd say that's the 99.9% of my waking moment. Opening school on time. I put that in there just so we could check that as done.
Always nice.
And I used a nice word there, encouraging the construction team to meet contracts and performance standards. Trying to support change in the staff. I think as we're experiencing, people are having, we're changing. There's a lot of change, and I think we have to be more proactive in helping people through the change. Strategic open house.
Change is not always easy.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
And it's not, you think kids are staffed more?
Well, I'm seeking to support staff in this change management action step. Kids seem pretty resilient. Strategic open houses, what I mean by that is, like you saw the corporate training rooms in the culinary arts area, the hospitality, like inviting people who are in that industry to come and see what we have to offer, to think about utilizing Minuteman for their own professional associations, taking a look at the theater, sort of really targeting folks that would have an interest in learning more about Minuteman, maybe being on an advisory committee, and doing this through chambers of commerce. I still have good relations through Rotaries, that sort of thing. Yes.
So the open house that's scheduled for tomorrow night?
For parents of ninth
Parents
graders.
and freshmen, right? Are you having something for the rest of the parents
Yes.
later in the?
Our next closest event will be in conjunction with the Minuteman Parents Association. So what
Okay.
we want to do is invite parents to come to their meeting, and then at the conclusion of their meeting, we'll do as well. So they can see the building. Well, we know they want to see it.
Okay, yeah, no, because I mean, I know parents want to see the building, I think, especially, people that are not locally having driven by or anything, out in Lancaster and Bolton and Stowe. To bring them here to see what we've finally accomplished will be, these are some of these parents that have been supporting the school for a lot of years, and seeing that we finally got here, I think will be very encouraging for the member towns.
Because it's really the critical milestone of being able to invite families is the permanent CO. We're doing the freshman parents tomorrow, and they won't get into the places you got into today. Don't put that in. Any other questions about, if you have some suggestions for me, please send them to Julia. But
My only question is, it's a
Yeah.
lot of goals. Are you comfortable with?
Well, we had this discussion.
I know.
I think, the reason I am is because I kept the action steps to simple. There's not like 8 under each one.
And they're not as specific as last year's goals, which I
Yeah.
appreciate, thank you.
And the evidence and benchmark are readily viewable in a 30-page packet, not a 300-page packet.
Okay.
So I am comfortable with it.
Okay.
From a school committee point of view, it seems these are exactly the right goals.
No, I agree. It's 7 goals, it's a lot of goals.
It's a lot, but in reality, it's just gonna have to work on all 7 of these anyways, whether we say this is 8.
Eight now,
Well,
so,
the 8
yeah.
one is, yeah.
With
He's
the
gonna-
transition one.
I know.
Yeah, he's gonna be doing them all anyways.
Right.
So other questions or comments? Okay,
Thank you.
shall we move
Oh,
on?
Belmont update.
Belmont update?
Yeah, so that's under goal 2. So I guess next month I'll ask you to approve these formally. Okay, goals and the evaluation plan. Jim, you want to talk about, there's a lot going on in Belmont.
Yeah, there is. I sent a memo in the package. I hope you had a chance to take a look at it. Last week was particularly busy. I met with the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, the warrant committee, capital budget committee, and it made presentations to them all. The Board of Selectmen agreed to at least put the question of rescinding the notice of withdrawal that town meeting voted in October of 2016 on the special town meeting that'll be in November. The local Belmont superintendent and I were, really strong pushing that be the date, because everyone from Minuteman to Belmont needs it for planning purposes. You need to know from a budget preparation point of view, and from an admissions point of view about whether Belmont is in or out. And so the Board of Selectmen agreed to schedule that vote in the November town meeting that starts on the 13th. It's scheduled for the 13th, 14th, and 20th if necessary. And they didn't take a position, but they're going to take a position later, and that was true of all four of the committees. There was only one person in particular who seems to be staking out a no point of view at this point. Everyone else seems to be open. The way I've been talking about it is that things have changed quite a bit from about three years ago, and while there were a lot of uncertainties 3 years ago, those have all been settled or clarified much more. So the lower risk path, in my point of view, for Belmont is to stay in, and that really is possible because of the work that this group and the staff and faculty have done building this new school, having the new dual academy model. I've talked about that, and then also the work that has been put into the enrollment for this year has been key. So I think everyone in Belmont understands that that what their perceptions were in 2016 don't match up with what the reality is now, and it's time to take a fresh outlook. The process, as I had the first conversation with you in the summer, and I've mentioned to them, is that the first step is for the Belmont Town Meeting to vote by a majority vote that they want to rescind that letter of withdrawal, and then the second step is for the Minuteman School Committee, as stated in the regional agreement, to unanimously vote to rescind it. And what I'm hoping is we had some conversation about that over the summer. We can have some more now, and I hope I can ask the officers to sort of think of ways that I could have something perhaps voted on at the October meeting that would give guidance to the Belmont town meeting about what would be necessary to gather unanimous support of this idea. I've made it very clear that making a make-up capital payment, the $472,000 that Belmont did not pay for the debt service as a result of starting down this path to exit would be, that's that's the price of admission, as well as becoming just a member, just like the other towns. I think the clarification you've given me over the past 3 years, whether you're in or you're out, has been a very, good, simple message to sort of bring back to Belmont. My understanding, talking with Kevin and the others who prepared this table, is that that fee would be collected from Belmont through the normal budget assessment process, and it would be that the money paid would be a credit to each town based on what extra payment they had to make over the past three years, and I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement that that's the process, but it would be great to sort of have that clarified by the October meeting. The things that could help me, I mean, I met with the Belmont Center business council this morning to sort of tell them that it was on the agenda, and they're a good target for you to sort of talk to at some point. I'll be doing I'm a guest with a local podcast tomorrow. I mean, I'm really trying to get the word out there, and I hope this is not going to be a controversial matter. That's my hope. I've stressed that, this is it. I mean, some people have said, well, can we postpone it? But I just don't see it practical, certainly in terms of my own personal involvement with this. Question?
No, just that maybe you're getting into this.
Yeah,
extending it over 3 years.
Yeah, the one ask is on the enrollment. That's really caught people's eyes and ears, and so some pushback is is this year an unusually high bump, but that we're going to go back to the lower levels, and whatever stories you have, if you can maybe send them through Ed at some point. I mean, I think you and George probably want to get a sense about what the interest in next year's freshman classes like, and any anecdotes that I can have. And then the other thing on the members of the select board asked me to ask whether there could be some spreading of the makeup fee over 3 years. I want to put it out there. I view it as sort of like 9 separate on payments to each member town, and I'm willing to sort of take back whatever.
So is that something you would want to know at the next?
I would want to know at the next meeting. I mean.
Yeah. So just to put a little frame, I think, on where we're going and what we're doing with this, is that I think we want to have some discussion today, particularly to ask any clarifying questions, any initial feedback that we can give Jim, and then we'll have a more extended discussion. Obviously, we wouldn't have, I know that Jim mentioned a vote, we wouldn't have a vote on rescinding the decision till after Belmont.
But a guidance, sort of a sense of the committee or something.
But I think that Jim is looking for something, and we can figure out what form this could take that could give some guidance to Belmont. And he's looking particularly for guidance on 2 issues. One is there any information that we would be able to give him to pass on to Belmont in terms of enrollment, and to help address their concerns that this year is an unusual year, and just kind of, as Jim said, just a blip. So anything we're hearing from our towns, anything that George and others are hearing from, the regular process that takes place. I know that this is going to be too early to have any definitive information on enrollment for the coming year, but I think that's one issue. And then the second issue that Jim wants feedback on is the issue of the makeup capital payment it being paid back in 1 year versus 3 years, and getting feedback from this committee on where people stand in that. So I believe that if we can focus our discussion on those two issues, if people have questions or comments on them, and then we'll have further discussion in October.
Okay.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I probably would want to go talk to both my select board and my FinCom, see how they feel about it. Personally, there's a little hard feelings with Belmont, given what we went through a couple of years ago, but you know, your kids deserve a vocational education the same way ours do, and if you're willing to pay in to get back in, but I need to talk to my FinCom and my select board to see what they think about giving you that 3-year lead time. I mean, I'm not convinced that one's gonna fly. But.
Okay, I think that we're gonna have a lot of comments, so people can just raise, so we can do Alice, then Steve.
So on the info and whether there's going to be an enrollment blip, you've never been able to get the right crystal ball. We've had a lot of them. So I don't know how we could actually make any kind of rational projections. I mean, I don't see it as a blip personally. My guess about the zeitgeist in my community is they'll be banging on the door for next year. So I don't think, but it's the crystal ball problem. We can't solve that problem. And then for the 3-year spread, it's basically Belmont. I don't know if Belmont would really want to ask the other towns to give them a loan, which is basically what it is. It doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel like equal footing. It doesn't feel like, it feels like there's one partner at the table who's in a different place, and that's not equal footing. So I would think that Belmont wouldn't want to put themselves in that position. I don't know if I could convince my board of selectmen that I was representing the town's interests if I said yes to that. But I don't know. I don't usually ask them what to do. I think they count on me to think on my feet.
No, I was just going to say, similar to what Jennifer said, that I will be seeking some guidance from the Finance Committee and the Select Board in Concord. In fact, we're scheduled to be in front of the FinCom like October 2nd, or whatever, right before the ribbon cutting. So I know the chairperson. I was going to ask if we could have that little discussion, and then maybe a discussion with the Select Board sometime before our next October meeting, because for Concord, it's not that much money, but as other folks have pointed out, it's kind of a policy issue of whether it's the right thing to do or not.
Bob's going to be at that meeting, I believe.
Other thoughts? Jeff?
With respect to the crystal ball, I think we're going to need a period of 5 years before we know what the enrollment is really going to be. They're asking once again to avoid risk, the risk that everybody else took in preparing this school. So I'm not really sympathetic that they need to have a crystal ball. Remember, those are the ones who rejected our plan because we weren't going to build a school for 420 kids. Well, they said we would be happy to build it for 420 kids, but your projections above that are ridiculous. So their ability to do their own predicting in Belmont is not, I think, very good.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that we're not capable of allaying their fears. They're going to have to take a little bit of risk because nobody knows what the future is, and it may go up a little bit down as we get established. So, but I think in 5 years, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be in a good position. No guarantees. The other part with respect to the money, so here's how I balance it. I always think any decision that I make, what is the impact on the kids? I'm less interested in the politicians and the selectmen. I'm interested in although money is always important, I'm always interested in the kids. Now the benefit for Belmont kids to have access to this facility is enormous. They have been part of our community for a long time. So I'm a little bit more willing perhaps to be a little bit more flexible on the money because the dollars aren't that big. I'll tell you what the real cost of having Belmont come back in is not the money. It's a governance issue. They were not a good partner for a number of years there. Well, I won't go into the details, but you know, in the age before Jim, they were not a good partner. They would not take risks. They backed off when we needed them the most and almost collapsed the project, except for the generosity and the foresight of the 9 remaining towns. Decided to go forward. They were negative, negative, negative. I remember them complaining about the amount of money we were paying for the, for the design thinking. All that was a tiny amount of money compared to the amount they paid for their school, and they complained and complained bitterly about it. So they were not a good partner. So the real cost to me, I've already made peace with this, is what if they come back and being a bad partner again? Now, we've done a great job of making progress over the last few years because everybody here has been a good partner. And they weren't that interested, so they allowed you, who's been a very positive influence in the school committee, to be their member. And they, they've been, left you alone, pretty much. So the real risk to me is getting in a position in which in the future we may have a partner who is a negative influence. So that's the risk to me. I've already said I'm willing to take that risk. So the money issue to me, okay, other people feel more strongly about it, that's great. Isn't that big whether we do it in 1 year or 2 years, whatever. Maybe you can compromise on 2, just to shut up the people who, the ones who are going to block this because of their ego, they have to get something. Okay, I'm willing maybe to do something about that to help out the kids, to get those people to be quiet. So I've already decided that I'm willing to take the risk on the governance issue, which is the real cost, and the rest of it, you guys can thrash out. So that's the way I feel about it.
Sue?
So, after what you said, I realize there's a lot of history that happened before I came on, but I'm assuming that a lot of the players in Belmont have changed since this history thing that was such a big deal, right?
That the select board has changed. The chair of the warrant up committee has moved him out of town. There's a lot of change there, and this is not going to go forward unless the school committee this time, the Belmont School Up Committee, is strongly behind it. I mean, the superintendent's on the record. The school committee hasn't taken a vote, but I told the chair of the school up committee, save me the eight weeks. I mean, if you're not going to support this, let me know now. I'm looking to be involved to make this happen.
So the 3 years, where did that come from?
Well, it was just it is the internal planning there. The last operating override was like 4 or 5 years ago. They're at the end of it, that they're just trying to see how to get through the next couple of years of a budget cycle. So that's. And
do you have a sense of how much of a deal breaker that is?
I don't think it's. I think it's. I mean, I raised it because the select board members asked me to raise it. I think it may change a few votes at town meeting, but it is. I'd be surprised if that were the issue that swung it. I mean,
what is the Belmont budget, annual budget?
110 million. I'm bringing it here. I'm really just trying to see what's possible. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to tell you what you should do because you have your own votes. I'm just looking for clarity so I can go back to town meeting and say, yes, it's 472 in fiscal year 21, or it's 300 in fiscal year 21, and the biggest payment's going to Arlington. So if that was spread out over 3 years, that'd be 60,000 or whatever. I'm not just looking for clarity, just so people at town meeting can't say, well, we don't even know what the Minuteman school committees.
I have one.
Go ahead.
It's on the enrollment side. I just wanted to make the point that the big construction on the Arlington High School, which happens while all the students are still there, which is really going to be a big fat mess, but that starts next summer.
Yeah.
So what we're going to be, what the parents are going to be seeing is fears of lead dust, and I mean, all kinds of terrible things, and noise and whatnot. So there's no way our enrollment's going down. I mean, just be clear about that. And we're up to 50. I think it'll be higher next year.
Great. With doing the construction in place.
Yes.
Dave.
So I think you have to realize that we're coming off of the Blue Ribbon school, right? So that's got us notoriety. We've got lots of press with the new school. We've got a new communications director that's going to be coming on, that's going to be making a concerted effort of driving more information. The kids are now getting settled and starting to talk. And again, we haven't even started the recruiting going on to the local communities. Again, I've said this before. I see this school being at capacity within 5 years of just in-district students. And we're going to be turning away in-district individuals, which I know we don't want to do, but that's the reality of you've got a new school in Arlington that's going to drive more individuals to an existing school versus construction. So you'll see some ebbing and flowing. I mean, Bolton, who almost never sees any increase, had an increase this year. And I'm getting stopped and people are asking me about the school. So even passively, it's moving along. So I think you're gonna see, just like we talked about 10 years ago, that this is gonna come to fruition. And if Belmont is trying to figure out we're all trying to figure it out. To Jeff's point, right? Take a stab at it and either get in or get out. but
yeah, and Jim, I want to let Dave have a chance to say something, and then want to see if there's any other burning questions that need to be asked tonight before we move on, because we are going to be discussing this at the next meeting.
Well, I just want to say there have been many words of wisdom spoken by members about the impact on enrollment and anticipation for enrollment, and just reminding us of some of the history of the committee's experience with the town, which is the past and over. And I personally would welcome the Belmont students back to the Minuteman district. And just regarding 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, I personally think I don't. If it's 3 years, I think that's fine. If it's 1 year, that's fine too. What I will do is I'm going to just talk with our town manager just to see what he says. But personally, if I don't mind 3 years. I don't know if that needs to be a condition or whatever, but it's okay with me. But I will check with our town manager just to get an idea from him what he might feel about it. May not convince me to change my opinion, but I'd like to ask him.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who has spoken, has indicated that certainly we want Belmont children to have the opportunity to be here. I think that some members want to go back and have conversations with their towns. I think we need to, I don't think that tonight we should try and come to any resolution on these issues. But I want to see if there's any other burning questions that people want to ask or information that they need, particularly if you're feeling like you want to go back and talk to your own town. And then if there's anything you want to add, Jim. So any other questions that folks have? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I am telling the same story in that town. I'm saying, this is a new level, and the interest is here. I cite the Blue Ribbon, I cite the new building, I cite the academy. It's just I'm just looking for other voices to hear it. But I think the support and the openness to having Belmont stay in the district is very, very much appreciated by me.
Thank you. Okay, shall we move on to principal's report? Sure.
Sure. We've had the most unique opening in the history of Minuteman since probably 1976 or that, whenever this place opened originally. We've been very conscious, even at our first staff meeting with really the entire school, thinking about how do we preserve the things that we loved about ourselves over there. How do we preserve those things and bring them here, and yet at the same time look at this space and the opportunities that it presents and make sure that we make this high school revolutionized now. I mean, we really can in a whole new way. So staff has been fantastic. I think we lost a couple of little days there in the summer where we thought we might be able to bring people in to set up, but you know all the stories. So, but the message has been, be patient, but be persistent. As we find things that need, like that video screen or whatever, we'll get to it. But the thing about our faculty in this whole place, we have very high expectations for student learning, but we see the school-wide goals. We're not taking our foot off the gas pedal no matter what. So even if the gas pedal isn't working right now, you get people basically pushing through the floorboards to keep the car going, and they push it, or whatever it takes to make sure that we're delivering what we need to do. But the faculty really rallied around that message and has really done an excellent job. The kids, as Dr. Buchanan said, they've adapted the fastest, I think. We did 2 days of orientation. We split up half the school for one day and the other half for another day. We had our student ambassadors come in. They actually got a little preview a couple of days before that, just to see. We really just asked them, like, all right, what would you do? What would you do if you're with the kids, and how would you do this orientation? So I think that was very beneficial. It was great to see. Since the start, we've had a couple of the, particularly some of the academic supports and special education run their own little scavenger hunts. I've seen a couple other teachers do that. It's just important to to navigate the building. We keep adding little posters where we can, just to try to help the kids understand, where it is. But it's getting better every single day. I think some highlights, at least 2 faculty members, when they saw their space, cried. It was just, that says it all. Like, what do you think?
For joy, I hope.
Yeah, it was cries of joy. Like, I just can't believe, I've been waiting so long, and it's something when you're sketching it and you're talking about it, and then you see it, and wow, this is everything I ever wanted. And it's just unbelievable. It's overwhelming for a couple of people anyway. My favorite comments are from kids. One of the tougher boys, like, well, I can't say it's a prison anymore. I'm like, that's good. It's definitely beautiful. I'm like, thank you. And one girl I said, what do you, I'm asking kids as they're walking by. She goes, one word, windows. Perfect. That's all I need to know. All right. So the kids love it. I think if you came to the cafeteria,
Student union.
The student union, you'd really be, that's like the vision in the videos. You have kids in the mezzanine, you have kids outside, you have kids sitting on the extra large staircase, just perfectly content. It seems like there's just enough room, they're spread out. I don't know if it's the yellow chairs or what, but it's just so mellow in there. It's been great.
The design is teenage heaven.
It really is.
Almost like a college campus having.
Yeah.
It is like it feels so adult for the kids.
Yeah, it just takes I try to describe it to Judy Bass. I said, you can just kind of feel like your anxiety level almost drop a bit, just because the colors, the space, how it looks, how it flows, light, all of it. It just kind of, it's nice. So I think we've had a really strong opening as far as that goes, and we've adapted pretty well. I was worried about it a lot. I'm feeling better about it right now. Is having students wear their ID badges, because that's a cultural change. I mean, kids have never, we've never worried about it. But I'm there in the morning, and you can see. I'd say we're a good 75-80% there. I mean, we don't even have them all made yet. It's another one of those technology things where we made some badges and they all came out look like they were in a fun house or something. We got to adjust this, but the kids are responding. I think they understand. Just grab right on, like, this is for your safety. Got it. Wear it. no pushback. I'm shocked. It's great, even the faculty. Also very tied into the beginning because I still feel like this is the beginning. It feels like a big bang in some ways because we had, it was like August 29th, we could finally get everybody in, and then the universe expanded and went, whoa, let's pick up all the atoms and figure out what's going on. The police and Lincoln Police and Fire have been great so far. Every day, just about every day, there's been at least 2 officers from Lincoln that have come in. Detective Spencer's been here, and he'll take 1 or 2 of the officers around and tour them around and introduce, to every, walk around the cap, walk around the building, and get a layout. The fire department's been great. They wanted to have a fire alarm, I think, the first day of school. Like, we just can't even, please. And they were, accommodating, understanding, but also very supportive in terms of, okay, well, what do you need? Can we look around and let's test things? And so they've been really great too. So as far as that goes, and I feel like it's, I say patient persistence. Eventually we're going to look around and go, oh, we're finally at business as usual. We're not so worried about how do we get to adjust this in that room, and we're going to know all that, and we can move forward. So a very, very, very good open, fun, chaotic, but we wouldn't want it any other way. I think everybody's very happy here. For enrollment update, I think there was something in the packet. I don't know. 600. I had 607 total students. 443 in district. That's good. We do have a large freshman class. We started at 200. At least that was what we were projecting back in July. Today there's 195 of them in the building, so that's fantastic. Really.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the summer, it was 200 plus 9 on a wait list.
We're going to keep that wait list, I think, right now.
So it's just been 5 that have dropped off of the 200, but the wait list is still.
Yeah, we're going to keep the wait list. I mean, this big group, because it's such a bigger than normal group, you're seeing all these different effects. There's a lot of things that we know we didn't know about the building, but then you add that in, we're going to have to make a whole separate lunch just for them because they're just so huge. How do you fit? The CAF only fits 250, and you have a class of 200. You just start getting into. So right now, anyway, our policy is, and we've had a few people call, I want to transfer, and that's great, but you're going on the wait list, which we probably won't tap in, unless we want to go to 200, but we're good.
Good.
I mean, this is
that's
pretty
great,
good.
because I was worried that you lost. I mean, that 13 didn't.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just 5.
Just a 5.
Okay, right.
We just held it right there. So I think I'm looking forward to a day as I'm listening to you. I just don't want to have to worry about transfers. I mean, I think freshman transfers, or even sophomore transfers, I should say. We're full. We're still full.
So,
George, that's my dream.
I know it's too early.
Yeah.
But eventually we're going to have some insight into what the real maximum of this school is. So obviously we can't have 200 kids a year. That's beyond it. So over the year, over the next coming months, I hope you'll give us some insight so we'll know, because I don't really have a feel for what the real maximum is. I know it's greater than 628. I know it's less than 800.
We don't have a feel for it yet either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you shared a target that next year's freshman class would be like 190 and 185 after that, and 180.
Yeah, we're going
forward. Is that still a
No.
good working? No.
I would say that's all in flux, based upon our experience in
And
the
it's not
last
going
9
down?
days. It's not going up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
One of the analysis we have to do is, after October 1, when the numbers are, those are the numbers we have, we're going to have to do a staffing analysis of the way we've scheduled the building. And so, the factors of enrollment are not square footage. That's half of it. The other half is what class size do we want to accommodate. Minuteman has always been noted for small class sizes, and our students have benefited from that. So we don't want to move whole hog in one area and lose the benefits of being the school, like George alluded to. What's the best thing about us over there? Well, one of the best things is we're small classes. You know, we can't replicate that. We have no intention of keeping. But when you look at other successful vocational technical schools, the staff-student ratio is 11 or 12. You know, and we fell to 8, I think, one year. So we have to look at all those factors, and we have to do it in a budgetary cycle.
Right.
So we're going to have to make some decisions based on the October 1 reports and our experience with scheduling the building.
I would also, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, the reason I'm focused on this is that I'm having a meeting tomorrow night to do a multi-year financial and enrollment model. And right now I'm using the 190, 185, 180, which sounds like it may be the best information between now and tomorrow night. But if you want to guide me to different numbers, I'll be glad to change that.
Yeah, I would just say it's probably going to be a little less
Okay.
than what I initially thought. The other factor in enrollment, if you use the MSBA formulas, which we have used to the maximum to benefit our square footage, you can go 15% over that.
That's right.
So 628 plus 15% is what, 745 or something? Yeah. And the other thing, here's the other thing, I'm sorry, is we have new programs where the veterinary technician program, which probably won't live completely in this space. So that's another, over 4 years, 50 kids probably.
But you still have to have room for them for academics. That's still during non-shop weeks. I mean, even though they're going to be out half the time, they're going to be here the other half.
You think you like
Right.
the veterinary program, something like that? Is that what you like?
We've already been approved for Part A.
But I mean, for not in the building, the veterinary.
We can't have it all in the building.
I know, but that's what you're talking about, that kind of program.
Yeah.
So, any idea, I mean, this is going to be a new thing for us. You get through exploratory and the shops are going to be filled.
We did a survey
Do you think
today.
we'll lose some kids at that point who?
I don't know, if they don't get their first and second choice, you may.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's something that's totally new for us too. We don't know what's coming down in December. What is it going to look like January 3rd, or when we get back after Christmas, because you might find kids who had their hearts set on environmental can't get in.
Absolutely.
Right. So.
But again, having gone to a vocational school that had a wait list myself, you had 3 shops that you wanted one of those 3. As long as you got into one of those 3, you were happy to be in the school. I mean, Assabet just doesn't have the drop rate. They're always full.
But I do think the takeaway from everything that we've talked about tonight, thinking about what you were asking at the beginning, is that like figuring out the enrollment, we're going to really have to be working over the next several months to be looking at what the enrollment strategy is. That at this point, it's too early to predict, well, here's what the ideal class size is going to be for next year, and here's how everything's going to play out. But that we really do have to be looking at what that strategy, be developing that strategy.
Just so you know, we're starting our cycle now. So we're in the phase now where, which we actually really begin in June, but people are already on vacation, or at least brains in most places that we deal with, of getting addresses and trying to set up meetings and presentations, and it's been a little, I'm just going to note differences. I don't know what they mean yet, but or just Acton's always Acton. They're the first ones that'll reach out to us in June and respond right away, and we already set up a date in June. New this year is Lexington Clark. Fantastic. We reached out this summer. We set up 3 different dates. We really, they we send out a general email, but I got a very specific one to me. Hey, George, I'm looking to set up, I would like to do this and that. Wow, that's new, that's great. We're still kind of working with Arlington, Diamond, and Belmont to get their date. That's not necessarily atypical, though. There's a lot of players, and the Belmont's one big, well, we got someone on maternity leave, and they rotate the counselors anyway, and it's all this stuff. So we'll get it, hopefully by the end of the week. So so it's good, some typical. Something that's got our attention and a little concerning. Bolton, Lancaster, and Stowe. We've only got contact lists from Lancaster. I don't think Bolton's responded at all to anything. And now that's, a June email, another email from me, one from Maggie, Sue's, our secretary, our admin calls, and usually nothing. Same thing from Stowe. We did get through with Stowe today, and it was, we have to send a list? Yup. And then, can we set up a meeting? And we'll meet with the team next week, and then we'll see about what we can do for a date. Okay, and usually Stowe's one of my favorite places to go because they just crack the whip and it's a great
I
presentation.
think maybe that almost a quarter of the class came here was probably a panic moment.
Yeah.
I think
They
it's
almost all
coming from
visited
high.
too. Actually, we did ask them last year. I said, your class is 80. You have, I think 68 kids signed up to visit. Why don't you just, why don't you send your whole 8th grade? Like, what are you doing anyway? No, we can't.
Well, I was gonna say, that's how they used to do it.
You're right.
Yeah, so they used to have the afternoon programs, and they used to have, so after school, they would send kids to the school.
Yeah.
They would do shop work, and then they would also do it. And we don't do that anymore. And the fact that Mrs. Malaski is retired, she did most of the running around.
She did.
So that's your in, that's gone now.
Right.
And so.
But I don't think they're getting much encouragement from the administration.
No, the administration is not helpful right now for us.
We're feeling it because it's unusual, and Lancaster's usually another one that's right on.
Okay, so Lancaster, that 8th grade class was 62, and we're sending 16.
Yeah.
So they're looking, there's some pressure. People want a new high school, and if the numbers are going down, you can't justify a new high school. So, I think there's a lot of things playing in the air in that district.
There is a tri-town meeting tomorrow night.
Oh, is
in
there?
Lancaster, I just found out today.
Oops.
How do you really feel?
We're not being taped, are we?
Yes, we are. There's 2 cameras.
Oh, that was bad.
I'm just glad it was you and not me.
We're all sympathetic.
Oh, yes.
Bless you.
Okay, George. On that note.
Yeah, so that's it. And then also on the agenda from the report, 2 field trips. I don't know how that voting.
Well, we need a motion for each one.
I will move to approve the Environmental Technology Program overnight field trip to Noble View Facility, Russell, Massachusetts, October 1 through 4 or 15 through 19, depending on what they get.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
I will then move to approve the cosmetology program trip to the Next Level 2019 event at the Rhode Island Convention Center, Providence, Rhode Island, on October 28, 2019. This is out of state.
Second.
Any discussion?
You briefly describe the purpose of that trip.
They've been going for years, and what they see is a lot of vendors, and they get some demonstrations, and they also get discount on product, and they go there, they come back in a day.
Other questions? Okay. When we vote, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Anything else from the principal's report? Okay, moving on to the finance report. Bob?
Okay, we'll start with 7A, student activity accounts, fund activity balances. In your packets, there should be a spreadsheet that's titled Minuteman High School Student Activity Accounts, June 30th, 2019.
Give us just a second to find.
Sure.
Okay.
And when you look at this document, you'll note that all the funds are in surplus position as of year end. And pursuant to DESE guidelines, I need to request the school committee to vote to accept this report as presented. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
One question. Do you find anything unusual in these numbers or in this report that we should be concerned about?
Well, this was a transition year, so you see a lot of, quite a few of these accounts have no activity. But this was a transition year, and so some of these clubs or activities may, come back on board. So at this point, I don't see a need to transfer those balances anywhere. In the past, when you have classes that graduate, if they have some excess funds, you, as a school committee, you would vote to move those into the other class accounts. If we ever felt the need to move those back into other accounts, we could do that. But for now, I feel like being a transitionary year, we want to keep those opportunities for kids to create those clubs moving forward. Because most of those balances are relatively small, the ones that have little or no activity.
And the ones with activity, there's nothing untoward. This is a report.
Well, the ones with activity, the income is greater than the expenses, so they're all positive. That's a good thing.
So my only question is with the community service fund, had a negative balance at the beginning
Okay.
and was made up in the income in the time frame. And is that purely from?
My understanding, I wasn't here.
Right.
But my understanding is that a significant amount of fundraising occurred because they knew
They
they
did
had
the-
it. They knew they had
Okay.
it.
So that's what this is, the
Cutting boards.
cutting boards and things, okay.
Something like that, yeah.
So that's my understanding,
Okay.
that they did their due diligence to bring that up.
Did you buy in?
Okay.
Kudos to them.
Okay.
I get
Other
that one.
Other questions on the student activity accounts? If not, we'll vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
I'd like to move on to 7B. Approval for the authorization to enter into a 5-year lease for the Konica Minolta printer copying machines as presented. During the transition to this new building, we felt compelled to assess the need for the high-volume printer that was located in the DVC. In fact, that printer was so large, it would have been difficult to move from that building into this building. It was such a large machine, and a little outdated, but it was a very high-functioning machine and high volume. We also had a need for a color copier in the main office, and so we were able to successfully renegotiate a long-term lease for a 70-page per minute high-volume copier and an additional color copier at approximately $18,000 less per year than we were leasing the old extra-large machine. So, under 30B, the finance director, who's acting as the chief procurement officer, can only enter into contracts up to 5 years, and up to 3 years. And in order to get such a good deal, we had to negotiate a 5-year contract. So therefore, the school committee, I need a 2/3 vote of the school committee to approve a contract greater than 3 years. And therefore, I'm asking the school committee to authorize the finance director to enter into a 5-year lease contract with Konica Minolta for the purpose of leasing the 2 printer copying machines.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion, Jim?
And that these are level payments over the 5 years.
And DVC, that one's staying, they're retrieving that one? Is that what?
That was a lease, so.
So they're retrieving that one.
They're retrieving that one, and we now.
One
have a
goes
new
to
updated
DVC
one.
and one comes to the office, so you've got two. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, so does that also include the maintenance?
It does. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes. So that part of that cost includes the maintenance contract. And there's no escalators. In the past, the former lease had escalators each year. We negotiated no escalators over the course of 5 years.
Wow, well done, that's great.
Okay, Steve?
My only question, was this a bid or was it a state contract or?
State contract.
State contract.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then we'll vote. All in favor?
Hold on.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, and agenda item 7C, you have a document in your pages that has a little chart like this. And this is the approval of the monthly informational list of donations as presented. Note that this month there were 2 donations totaling $150 towards the general scholarship in memory of Bruce Flood. The donations have been acknowledged. We've sent the thank yous. And I would move that you approve the September list of donations.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Anything else under finance?
No, thank you.
Okay, subcommittee reports. Alice, the policy subcommittee.
Okay, so the policy subcommittee only has one thing before you this evening. It's one of our most important policies. It's been through several drafts. There will be more. There were a number of small typos and one missing word, which I want to point out to you on page 2 at the top of the page. It's the third line. There should be the word Minuteman in there. It should say subject to availability of openings at Minuteman. And there were some other tiny typos that have to be fixed along the way. I want to recall to everybody's memory that we had talked a couple of meetings ago about a method for making sure that each town had a guaranteed number of slots for the students, so that there wasn't ever a situation where some town didn't get to send any kids to Minuteman but is paying for their building project. So member communities would always have some slots, and if you look at these 2 pages that Julie printed out for you, Jim had done some work for us to come to a sort of formula that was an example of how you might do the slots based on a 4-year rolling average of enrollment. So we had talked about that before. Some people had some questions about that. So Sue, that is, I think, the answer to your question.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I also wanted to point out, in the last couple of pages, in page 10, 11, you'll see that decisions have to be made and responses have to be sent within 20 or 10 business days. And part of the thinking there is that you really want to make sure that kids aren't left waiting for long periods of time. So when they, if they have a quarrel with whatever the school has done, there is a due process in this document, but it is not an endless process that goes on for months while they're still trying to figure out their life. So that's the reason for that. Also, Jeff had provided some comments, which are also printed out for you. It says from Jeff Stewart at the top. And he has a few questions which the policy task force is going to have to take up and go through one by one. We don't have time to go through all of them today. Ta-da!
Did somebody move something?
No. It must be important. We haven't had time to obviously look at any of these because Jeff responded today. So
Good, thank you, Jeff.
But his comments are thoughtful, and some of them are really important to discuss, I think. But what I'd like to ask for you to do is consider whether or not to move this policy, fixing the typos, for first reading, and then we come back to you with responses to Jeff's comments incorporated into a second draft at the next meeting. If anyone is so inclined, you could move the policy as written.
I will so move.
Thank you.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, so discussion ensues.
Start here, Jeff.
So I just want to take the opportunity to especially thank the policy committee and Alice, because I have some insight into how much work went into putting this very important and very complicated policy together. So I want to acknowledge the work beyond what most of our policies require. This is kind of at a different level for most of our policies to work on this one to get it right. And I'm sure this is going to be a lot more work left. So thank you so very much. I was delighted to see it.
And Amy Perot also.
And Amy and all the others who have been working on it.
Staff behind the scenes.
Yes,
Staff
here,
behind the
here.
scenes.
We did cut something like 6 or 7 pages out of it. Thank you.
And just to,
Thoughtfully.
and just to remind folks, the policy subcommittee that worked on this is Alice, Dave, and Jim. And Amy. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I think I have Jim and then Jennifer.
So just to expand upon what Alice said about this table, on page 3, the first paragraph under organizational structure, the last 2 sentences of that paragraph are a key, and it says here that that the administration will bring to this body every year, first, the number of seats that they're targeting for the freshman class, and second, what the allocation of the minimum seats is. And it's not going to be, those numbers won't be baked into this policy, but instead a process by which this committee will take a look at that every year. I just wanted to sort of clarify that.
And we might consider adding a sentence to explain that we're trying to preserve the right of the member towns to send students or something like that.
It might also be wise to ensure that there's somebody on the select board of all our member towns to understand that we have to consider the issue that not all students may be admitted, and that this is the way that we're looking at it in the future, which is something different. You've never heard from us. Maybe it'll come to that, maybe it won't, we don't know, but we're far enough along that we have to consider, and they should understand that we're talking about that process.
And that may be part of the enrollment strategy.
That will have to be part of the enrollment.
Jennifer?
Okay, so, page 6. So the scholastic achievement, it says a maximum of 20 points, but the maximum is 5. So I was wondering if it was going to be the same 20, 15, 10, 5, 0.
No, but it's 4 courses.
Oh, is it, oh, okay, so it's
Yeah.
all their courses. So, what, 4? If they take 5 classes,
English,
what,
social
4?
studies, math, and science.
Okay, those are the only ones, okay, sorry. And then in Scholastic, the next page is school discipline and conduct. So it mentions grade 9 twice. I don't know if it needs to. For application to grade 9, fall admission, discipline record of 7th and 8th grades. And then it says for applications to grade 9, 10, or 11. Do you just mean 10 or 11?
This probably has to do with during the school year. We'll have to look at that one.
Okay. If somebody's coming in.
Yeah.
Well, there might be an 11th grader coming, I think, yeah. So you'd have to work at 9 or 10.
And then the final one was on page 8. Is it enough time to do, if the deadline to have your application in is the 15th, is it enough time to have all of the information back by March 1st? I mean, that just seems tight to me if you're...
Well,
it's
it
a
is very
rolling,
tight.
because you can't do it as rolling because you need to have everybody, right? I mean, so is that enough time?
You can comment.
It's well, I think the way I understand it, it's not rolling like we used to do. It would be more like a one big cohort. We would collect all the.
I mean, there's some
data
people that
and
the kids that got
cohort.
hundreds, you know, you might be able to put them in a little pile and say, I don't have to look at them again. But, you know, I think that's 2 weeks seems like a really short period of time to go through what could be 250 applications and determine.
Well, okay, I'm trying to figure out where you are, and I don't have it in front of me. we'd be getting applications, anything typical, starting around Halloween all the way up. So we're really already reviewing.
Well, I know you'd have them reviewed, but you
Right.
would have to wait until the February 15th before you could make any decisions. Because you'd have to have all of, that's your deadline. You can't make a decision before then because you're now having, there's a criteria for admissions now.
Well, there always is. So we're always, as
Well, but we've never filmed, so there's a criteria for not admitting. So I guess that's the part I'm concerned about, that is there enough time to evaluate all those applications and determine where the student falls in that criteria and say, yes, you're admitted. I mean, I know there's always been criteria for admission, but
Yeah.
now there's, with the school being potentially full, it's changed. Am I right? I would be concerned that you have a lot of kids that you would then have to make sure that you have an equal playing field with, that you've seen them all before you start making those acceptances.
Yeah.
So you used to be able to accept kids in, I mean, January, right?
well, that's not what, and I suppose we could have, but that's not what we're doing.
But I guess there's it's not just a single application. Each application kind of has to be evaluated based on all the other applications that are received.
So, can I
I guess.
step in here to try this? And Sue, I see your hand, but I just want to see if we can wrap this up. So I think the way that at least I'm reading this is an application comes in and there's pretty clear criteria for doing a numeric ranking for each application. So you can be doing that as it comes in, but what you can't do until after the 15th is to put them all in order.
Right.
To be figuring out, who falls in the accepted camp. And I think that what Jennifer's question is, according to this, you have 2 weeks from the deadline for applications then to have them all ranked and to be able to order them and get the notifications out. Is that enough time?
Yes.
It is, okay, so that was just my question.
Okay.
You
Sue?
answered part of my question, but I have a different issue, and where did it go? On page 7, for the recommendations, it says any school staff or other adult qualified to assess the student's potential for success in VOTEC education. Who is that? I mean, right? I mean, it can't be just anybody.
Well, typically we get it from a guidance counselor. Some schools will, Arlington's actually a big one they'll put it to their homeroom teacher or a teacher who's got them twice in a day, and they'll actually write the recommendation. However, we've had homeschool kids, for example, may come in and they'll say, or even sometimes public school kids, just straight public school kids, say, can I have my rabbi do it? He wants to write something really wonderful about me. Yeah, well, you might want to see that.
I mean,
sure, we'll
But this may be an issue for the Department of Ed. They may want more clarification for that.
yeah.
This is one of the criteria they're thinking of changing in the regulations.
Yeah, the superintendent of, executive director of Madison Park is using this type of language.
Is the goal here to get a character reference, or the belief that the kid will work hard enough to achieve success? I mean, what is
A little bit
that?
of all that, but it's really, what's the likelihood of they're going to succeed here in a vocational setting? Do you see this kid doing well here, knowing what you know about this place?
Well, that's what
Assuming you know anything.
Right, that's what
But-
worries me a little
Right.
bit, because I'm not sure I'd be qualified, well, more qualified at this point than before, but I mean, there's not many people who, in the Arlington system, actually have a clear understanding of what it takes to succeed here. And it would be helpful to have that information.
Yeah, I mean, we do the best we can with our partner districts to make sure that they know, but, it's also like, there's a fifth of the final score, so.
The rationale here is not to restrict this recommendation to come only from a guidance counselor. In previous versions and in almost all of the other vocational school policies, which are almost all carbon copies of one another, it used to say guidance counselor.
I see.
So we are actually trying to expand that to make it more helpful to the student.
Right. Well, I know with the caseloads in Arlington, the guidance counselor made barely know the face.
Right.
So, yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we take a vote on, moving the policy to first?
Just say we'd be interested in hearing from other people, right, between now and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so please send your comments to Julia, who will feed them to us about, as Jeff did, to let us know if you have questions about it or comments, suggestions, whatever. But quick soon, because we're going to be meeting soon.
And similarly, we rely on Amy to bring
Yeah.
forth comments from the staff.
Send them to Julia would be the best thing. Thank you.
Just so you know, the process, once the school committee approves, it gets submitted to the Department of Ed for approval. So even though we may have a pretty rock solid idea of what we want to do, we can't implement it until they approve it.
So it's a question for Ed. Do you know if they've got anything planned for their rewrite of the regs that
Oh, yeah.
that would
There's
change?
several things
change
in
this?
admissions and exploratory that they're evaluating.
Do you know whether the lottery versus a ranked scoring is on the table?
It depends who you talk to if it's on the table or not, but one of the stronger advocates for it in the Department of Ed is no longer there. There is a remaining advocate for it. There may be some modified lottery. There's also talk of incentivizing the lottery in those areas of the state where there were large waiting lists. For instance, Essex Aggie has a waiting list of 1,200 kids.
How big is the school?
I think it's close to 2,000. New Bedford has a waiting list of 800 or something.
Huge numbers of kids.
They're trying to, it's the access issue in terms of, I don't want to rehash.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
But yeah, they're looking at changing it.
So it could be, I mean, but it sounds like we should just go forward and
Absolutely.
Yep.
One of the wisdoms in this admissions policy, which has always been in here, which is not in the other policies, believe it or not, is that we weigh all 5 criteria the same. Like in some of the places where there are long waiting lists, they don't give the interview any, like 4 or 5 points. So they're going really on grades, discipline, and so that's why they get accused of creaming off the top. The kids who are academically proficient are ending up going to the vocational schools, and the kids who are getting excluded are being described as those being really able to benefit from it, and they're not getting access. That's all I'll say about that.
Okay, without going into a discussion on the overall.
Feel free to move us along, Madam
Yes, yes, I'd like to move us along. We have a motion that's been seconded to move the policy, admission policy to first reading. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, Secretary's report. Dave?
Julia, did you receive any suggestions? I move that the minutes of July 16th, 2019 be accepted.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain, I wasn't there.
Yeah, abstentions, so we have 3. Okay.
Question about, who's doing the spreadsheet thing?
Julia.
Julia.
Yes.
Yep, Julia has it covered.
This is back at the MASC and the SS joint conference. Is there?
You go,
Yes, it was in the packet.
The MASC joint conference in the fall, I don't know if anyone's interested in attending. There's some required things that new members need to go through that we can share with you. This is one of the places you can get it done. I don't know if it's online yet. Is it? No.
I don't think so.
We'll let Julia know if you're interested in going.
is there anyone who thinks they might be interested?
you have a year to do it and start looking, because they end up being like in Springfield or, you know.
They're not convenient. This
They're
is the
not
most
con-
convenient way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I lucked out and mine was only in West Boylston, but they, yeah, they have them, but they don't tend to be where you want them to be.
I may think about that.
Okay, anything else, before we adjourn and then enter into executive session? So, do we have, if not, we have and also I want to add my thanks to the policy subcommittee. That was tremendous work. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I'll make the motion. Who do we want to remain?
Do the motion to adjourn first.
Oh, we don't have to.
No.
So
We don't
just
have
do
to?
this. No, no.
No, because we're just gonna say not to return to regular.
Not to return to. So we're not going to return. And who remains?
The school committee, Bob, Julie, and I.
Bob, Julia, and Ed. So I move that we enter into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, which I believe the chair does. Not to return to open session, and Bob, Julia, and Ed will remain with us. As roll call.
So we need to do a roll call vote, so maybe.
Dave O'Connor, Bolton, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Allison Costello, yes.
Pam Nursemkin.
Jeff Stuhlin, yes.
Gordon Lexington, yes.
Guillermo Belmont, yes.
Sue Shepherd, Arlington, yes.
Dennis Leoni, going back to yes.